And now once you get to that fourth one, you need to start pulling until you see the beginning of that thread start to move. Now you have tightness.
You want to save some time? The next time you rent a DVD, don't bother rewinding.
So I'm going to finish this up. And once I'm halfway done, we'll see how the finished product is. Okay, if you can see that I'm right here, this part of the hair, she's dark in here, so I can't really show you too much, but you know, I'm already way over here. And the reason is because I'm going about an inch distance. Thread that part, and then an inch over, I thread that part, you know. It works perfectly for the both of us. It's tight for her, and it's quick for me. Anyways, I'm almost over here, and you see I have her holding her hair once more so she can keep it underneath the braid, and I can see my track line. And I just pull it through. The thread has started to shorten itself, which is good. So you just pull it through. Now make sure that track, if you've already started, do not restart yourself, because you will mess up your whole entire braid. So just keep running with it. But afterwards, after you finish that one track, if that track has started to go on top of the braid, you need to make sure that doesn't happen for the next layer that you do. Because what you're doing, you're making it simply harder for you and easier for their hair to break off due to the thread tangling up inside their hair. You want the thread going underneath towards the scalp, but not in the scalp. And you will know if it's going underneath the braid by watching, if you're watching what you're doing. You know, so I always say, my motto is, you know, do unto others as you want them to do unto you. So if you don't want them pulling your hair out, then you take your time and don't pull theirs out. And if you don't want to take your time, then it's best you not do their hair. Because hair makes women mad if you mess it up. I don't care if it's your sister or your granny. You mess them up, they're going to get pissed. That's just plain and simple, right? Anyways, so I'm all the way over here to the front part again, where the two tracks ends that have been cut are now reaching each other. If you notice that the hair is in front of her face, and the reason for that is because the vein, which is right here, it's going to start right here somewhere, will not be cut until the end, but it's going to be there. So I need tracks to match each other, which I call them kissing tracks. That's what you need when you're doing a bang. Kissing tracks. You know. Anyways, they need to be right there in front of her face. And of course, she can always pull them behind her ears to keep them from agitation of the eyes. But either way, they do need to stay there, and they do need to be sewed in, however you said. Sewed in right there, that area. So, now around this point, you're noticing if you have too much track, you need to cut that piece off. You cannot try to overlap it, or no, just cut it off, because it will mess you up. And if you have not enough track, do what you can with what you have, and be sure to make more, what's that word I'm looking for? Proper, or shoot, I don't even know the word. You guys know it. Just be sure to make more precise measurements. Go right through the hair to tie that track on, and make sure you pull it over to the next braid. Now you're one down, and you have about I don't know how many more to go. It just varies. You know, the bigger the head, the more hair you need. The smaller the head, the less hair you need. Her head is about a normal sized woman, so you don't really have to worry about it. And if you notice right here, this is the track where I begin. You remember that thread I told you to leave out about an inch? Well, what happened is, over time, after I pulled and pulled and pulled, I did not leave enough thread, so now I can see where this track feels loose. Well, since I have more thread, which I said I always get a little bit more, but not too much, I'm in luck. I'm going to, since the tracks are kissing, I'm going to walk right on over here and say, hey, you need a helping hand? And I'm going to sew it right back on in there and get it tight, which will be more secure now that They're right next to each other. And pull it tight now, because these are the edges. Once the edges come off, the hair is over. So I'm going to do that about 2 times. I'm not going to try to use all my thread up where, okay, I'm going to keep sewing and sewing and sewing until this thread is gone. Once I'm done, the thread is done. You know, don't over sew. That's just a nonsense. That's nonsense. It's a waste of time, and it's a hassle for them to get down. So just only what you need. Leave your thread. Do not cut it. Don't say, oh, I'm finished with it. You're not done. Okay? Okay, can you pass me the hair? Well, grab your hair. Now, where you started, start there again. Now, this time, we're going to overlay the braid. Now, that does not mean go on top, but it's going to go right at that rim that we're seeing right here. This rim, you see it? That rim, not in this area, but right here. You're going to put the track right in front of it. Okay? Not on top, but right, like you want to, you know, stick it in there or something. And you put it right there, and before you even start to measure, you're going to stitch it. You're going to grab your needle. You're going to run it through your hair. The needle will buckle up your hair to where your hair is poofy out in some places where you have to start cutting pieces, and you don't want that. So be careful not to let that happen. Anyways, run that underneath real quick. And pull it tight. Now this one you can pull as tight as you want because the tracks is already next to each other and the needle and the thread is in the distance, and wrap that around a couple of times. Or loop it around or sew it in. Anyway, so once you do that, make sure it doesn't bunch up on you. Bunch up hair is stubborn hair. No matter how tight you pull it in the ponytail, the hair will always stick up, so you don't want that. Anyways, you're running right underneath the braid again. And this is called overlaying. It's my version of overlaying. You know, there's a lot of different critics out there with different techniques, you know. Whatever you do what you do. Whatever you do to get the job done, do what it, you know, does. But my hair has grown at least 5 inches, literally, in the last half of a year. Because I take care of it, so I'm pretty sure you might want to follow some of my things. Anyways, now you started off getting the threads closer together. Now you want to kind of start doing your inch part away. Now, if you notice, I have yet to cut it or measure it because I'm not going to cut it anymore. Because I'm going to tell you something. This serves as 2 purposes. If you don't cut these tracks, you can pull them out whole and do a totally different style over and over again and reuse this hair if you take care of it. So, with that being said, we're not going to cut them. And I'm just going to run it underneath it, an inch apart. And I'm going to be pulling it tight. Not too tight, and make sure your track doesn't start to bump. If it starts to bump, you need to lay it down so you can tie it down with this needle and thread. Now around this part, the hair the needle is severing. You really can't see their scalp no longer because the hair is now covering it. So you really do need to be cautious not to stick them with this needle. Because as I said, treat others as you want to be treated. So take consideration that they got feelings too. Anyways, go underneath. Make sure if the needle starts to stick and doesn't want to pull, then what that really means is either you're running out of thread or you've went inside the braid. And that's running the needle through the braid, and you don't want that. That'll make your needle and thread unhook every single time. Well, you're going to use this thread to, when you have about 3 inches of it left, that's when you want to stop. Because you don't want the thread getting so short to where you're trying to push the needle in there. This is about 4 inches. I'm going to go one more time and take another inch away, and then I'm going to stop. I'm going to, you know, rethread my needle and throw away the thank you for coming bow. Okay? Now remember not to let your tracks bump. Okay, now once that's been done, I'm going to have to start an inch backwards